Hi there Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video, and welcome to episode 158 of Ask Boss Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comment section below and do my best to answer them. So if you do have a question that you want answered in next week's video, please leave your questions in the comment section below of this video. I want to apologise that there was no episode last week. I took my daughter to go and see the Stranger Things experience in London. It was awesome. I had a great time. It was just me and her together. It was awesome, really good. If you ever get the chance to go and see that, I think it's in the States as well. We really enjoyed it anyway, and my daughter loves Stranger Things, so that's why I couldn't do that video last week. I think I put a review up of one of these figures instead. That video is much quicker for me to do, and I think I did it the day before anyway. So apologies for that, but we're catching up this week. So as I say, if you do have a question for next week's episode, make sure you leave it in the comment section below. And if you do happen to enjoy this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. And with all that being said, we're just going to get straight onto the first question. Spy Guy says, hey Bossk, do you think with the release of the artillery stormtrooper next year, Hasbro will make the Imperial Dropship from the Mandalorian Season 2? We now have most of the figures to reenact that scene, and it would be great to have an Imperial transport ship. You're absolutely right, it would be great. Whether Hasbro sort of come through for us and do that is another matter. And you're absolutely right, we do have lots of the figures from that sort of episode in Tython, I think it was called, the planet, where the stormtroopers come in on that dropship, and you've got the artillery stormtrooper. He is one of the figures that I have reviewed on the channel if you haven't watched that video already. But yeah, I don't know, man. Vehicles are in short supply, aren't they, in general, or at least new vehicles. We've had the reveal of the ATST, which is a repack, so new vehicles just don't seem to be getting made, except for the speeder bike, which apparently is new. So yeah, I wish I could say yes, 100% we'll definitely get that, but let's face it, I don't think it's looking likely. Christopher Barton says, hey Boss, question for next week. Do you think Hasbro will finally give TVC a definitive Captain Rex using the upcoming Phase 2 clone body and the ARC Commander Cult head sculpt? First of all, I've just got to say yes, I hope they do. I hope they do that. That would be awesome. Just about the Phase 2 clone, we actually got to see it today. It was on the back of the Scout Trooper card back. It got leaked today in one of the Facebook groups. Not leaked, but basically someone's got their hands on the Scout Trooper and just showed a picture of the back, and there he is, the Phase 2 clone trooper. I made a video all about it today with my initial thoughts, and just looking at it again, you know, I can definitely see that it is a new sculpt. It is far less skinny than the original one that we have at the moment, the VC45, and that really does help the proportions of the figure in general. And I've asked a few people in the community, a few buddies of mine, what they actually think of the figure, and you know, what they think, you know, whether they think that helmet is still a little bit oversized, because I couldn't really tell by the pictures. It is hard to tell with just the one sort of grainy image that we have. And John Miko, my buddy from the Facebook group, made a really good point in that for the Clone Trooper helmet to be accurate, it does need to be a little bit oversized, because it needs to fit over a human head, right? When you see them in the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith, you know, it's all animation, basically. You know, it's not a real person in there. So for it to fit over a real person's head, I kind of think that it needs to be slightly oversized anyway. I would prefer it if it did have a removable helmet, so that you could have those portraits underneath, such as Captain Rex and all the other guys. So yeah, there is that, and you know, I like it. I think it looks good, and you know, when it comes to repainting it and what have you, we'll have to see what they do with it, but they're not going to waste that sculpt. Once they've made it, they will be using it multiple times in the future, no doubt. Jose Chavez says, hey Tim, great as always. This is my 10th episode I've watched on release day. My question is about storage. How do you recommend storing open figures? Thanks. And bonus, with the semis set, who do you root for in the World Cup? I'm going for Morocco and Croatia. Well, as of the time of recording this video, the World Cup final is in about a couple of hours time. So I'm not really too bothered who wins out of those two. England are out now, a bit of a shame, but what have you. In terms of your question about storage, if you're talking about storing figures that you are unable to display, then I recommend getting sort of little sealed baggies for them. Make sure you get the acid-free ones so it doesn't affect the plastic, and then, you know, just put them in like a sealed container or something. If you're talking about like storage in terms of display, then obviously you can either have them on shelves or in sort of detolf cabinets, things like that. Entirely up to you. Mighty Makoko says, question for next week. On the newly revealed Endor Rebel Commando Scout Trooper disguise figure, can you ask why they chose not to include Rex in that name pill? Or even if it dawned on them that is Rex in the scene? Like, how did they miss that? Well, I think it was Dave Filoni that sort of teased that it could be Rex, but I think then he also said that he wasn't going to make that canon. So as far as I'm concerned, that character is still Nick Sant. It's not Captain Rex. Some people may disagree with me and what have you, but it never actually got made canon. I think Dave Filoni just sort of teased that it could potentially be him and that Captain Rex was on the Battle of Endor somewhere, but not necessarily that character. And I think he even said something like that he didn't want to like decanonize an already existing character in Nick Sant and make him Captain Rex. So as far as I'm concerned, it's still Nick Sant. A great one here from Nick Reddock, and he says, question for next week, what do you think is going to happen sooner, England winning the World Cup or Hasbro finishing the 96? Hopefully both happen sooner or later. Well, to be honest, I think both of them possibly won't ever happen. And if I had to bet on which one would be done first, it'd probably be the 96. That's how much confidence I've got in England. You know, we had a good World Cup, we looked good, but we just don't have that sort of killer instinct in the final sort of moments against the best teams. Never mind, eh? And GA says, hi BB, thanks as always for another intriguing episode. Question for next week. I was disappointed to hear that you don't believe Hasbro will ever truly finish the 96. Is that because finishing the 96 means Walrus Man on his original card, Zutmore Snaggletooth from the Holiday Special, TIE Fighter Pilot on an ESB card, or do you think they'll miss out on figures like Simalu and General Medine? I would have thought finish the 96 HasLab a few years down the line might help with the potential peg warmers. Cheers, man. Yeah, I think it's exactly what you've just put in your question there. I think they've already done Walrus Man. I think they've already done Zutmore, Snaggletooth, and for them it's kind of ticked off. And then you've got the other figures in the line, which I just don't, you know, General Medine, you know, the hardcore collectors would love that figure in the Vintage Collection. I just can't ever see them doing it. If you think about all the other things that they've got to do, I just can't ever see them doing it. That's the reason I just don't think they'll ever complete the 96. I think they'll get close. They'll do a lot of the good ones. But when it comes to ones like that, I just can't see it happening. This is Weekway, says, great vid as always, BB. I watch your show with my son every Sunday night. Hello to your son. My question for next week is, what Jabba's Palace characters, other than those already announced, would you most like to see released or re-released? The more obscure, the better. There are so many weird and wonderful creatures that we could use in the new playset. A new Amanaman would be my top pick. Yeah, Amanaman for sure is definitely one of mine. Squidhead, I've said him before. You could have Jiran from the Legacy Collection. Really, really good figure, that one. You know, the Rancor Keeper. There's quite a few, isn't there, really? Window Weekway, I'd like him from the Barge. There's a few, man. There's a few they still need to do. Damon Whitaker says, love your channel and your reviews. Question for next week. You talked about the Gamorrean Guard, but what about the Gamorreans from the Book of Boba Fett? Think they will ever be released? That's a difficult one, because if they are to do that new Gamma Guard, it will have to be, you know, at least new tooling from the waist up, I think. They could probably get away with using the head, maybe, of the previous version, and the legs. Maybe the arms, but the torso is completely different, isn't it? So that's going to be a difficult one for them to do. It's a maybe, isn't it? It depends. I honestly think sometimes it really does depend on the success of these shows. You know, if we have The Mandalorian Season 3 absolutely smash it out the park and Ahsoka smash it out the park, then they will sort of concentrate their efforts on figures from those, you know. When it comes to the Book of Boba Fett, it didn't get a huge reception, apart from the episodes that, you know, were about the Mandalorian. So, you know, maybe they're sort of just going to sort of sweep that one under the carpet once they've got the core characters out of the way, like Cad Bane and things like that. Phenomenaut says, question for next week. Seeing how the Death Star seems like a popular wish item for the HasLab, what do you think of the idea of more small to mid-sized playsets based around the Death Star that could connect together, stack like floors maybe, rather than one large playset for HasLab? Quite surprised that we haven't seen more parts from Jabba's Palace after the Han Carbonite set came out, especially since it featured prominently in the new media and can appeal to fans of new media as well as the OT. Looking forward to the upcoming Throne Room, but I feel it's a shame there aren't more playsets at a more budget-friendly retail price. Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, the more and more I think about that, you know, the playset for the Death Star, I think that is probably the way to go. Smaller, more focused diorama type playsets for the, you know, the trash compactor, for the briefing room, for the detention block. That kind of thing would be more what I would think that they could do. I've said it a few times before. If they were ever to do a HasLab Death Star, I would worry about the execution of that and what it would be centered around. You know, if you were going to include everything, it would have to be absolutely massive. And I think what you're saying there, maybe something that could connect together, modular type thing, would be the better thing to go. And then also, when they do that, they can include a packed-in figure like they seem to like doing with these playsets. So you know, you might be able to get a more obscure character that way. Nope C6 says, hey BB, I just took out all of our Christmas stuff boxes and with looking through my Star Wars ornaments, I was wondering how you are decorating your Christmas tree. Here in the US, we start early putting up the tree. Some have it already lighting up the room. Not sure how that works in the UK. Maybe no pressure here, but can you make a little tree decorating video with little Bossk cheers? I don't think it's worthy of a video, to be honest. I've got to be honest, like, I think it's a step too far if I get involved with the decorating of the tree and putting like Star Wars ornaments on it and things like that. I think my wife, you know, that's where we draw the line, you know, Star Wars items sort of going into the lounge area. I've got my collection room and that's kind of where it all has to live, unfortunately. Resistance X-Wing Pilot says, hey boss, question for next week. After the Endor Bunker reveal, I thought it was cool that they included the opening panels on the bunker where Han and R2 tried to get the doors open. We have a new Han on the way to go with it, but maybe this could be hinting at a new R2-D2 on a Return of the Jedi card. It could be a good opportunity to use the pop-up lightsaber card back image since it shows R2 at the bunker. You have read my mind, Mr. Resistance X-Wing Pilot. In fact, I'm in the process of doing one of my missing figures videos for that playset, and the R2, you know, is front and center in that. I would absolutely love them to do that card back. Got to be careful with which R2 they release, you know, whether it's a new one. But I did find it funny as well that a lot of the comments in my video about that bunker were like, oh, it's just the same as the Power of the Force 2 version, whatever. And whilst it is just kind of like some doors that are going to be on your shelf, I think it is a lot better than the Power of the Force version. And those little things that you've just mentioned there that they've added with the little control panel and sort of thing, the new Han Solo coming out, you can sort of imagine the sort of dioramas that you can sort of put together on your shelf using that bunker. So I'm really happy with it. Callum McFarlane says, do you think there'll be any Old Republic or expanded universe sets coming out in the future like Revan or even just a Sith with those amazing masks on from the Old Republic trailers, figures? Also, do you think the Geonosian Warrior will get a reboot, as I'd like more of those? I own 10 and want more. Was that in the Lost Legacy Collection line, I think? Did it get repacked in the Black Series 3.75 as well? I can't remember. But yeah, that's a possibility, isn't it? But yeah, in terms of Expanded Universe, Old Republic figures, I think you can expect some next year. Don't worry about that. Maybe even one that you've mentioned there, but we'll have to wait and see. Zombie Duck says, so with the latest announcements, we seem to know what we will be getting for the Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary, at least for the first half of the year. Question for next week, how do you feel about Hasbro's offerings for the anniversary based on what we know? For me, I feel that there is a lack of newness, as if they chose the Battle of Endor because they knew they had a lot of stuff they could re-release with minimal effort. So far, the Return of the Jedi release that's got me excited was Piet. Yeah, and that's why I've got Captain Needa here, because, yeah, the Piet figure on the back of that card back that we have seen this morning, he looks amazing. He looks fantastic. I'm really, really happy with that. This figure had some, like, dodgy knees, and just the sculpt was all over the place on this guy. And I really wanted to get this one so I could do a comparison for when that Piet figure is released. But just judging by the one photo, it looks a massive, massive improvement. In terms of the 40th anniversary offerings so far, I'm actually reasonably happy with it, and I'll tell you why. First of all, the Empire Strikes Back 40th anniversary that we got was pitiful. We never got really anything for that at all. They never celebrated that anniversary in the Vintage Collection like they did the Black Series. So for what we're getting at the moment, you know, and there is some other stuff to come out as well. As you say, we don't know all of it yet. I like the bunker. I like the figure that comes with the bunker. I like the fact that we're going to be getting the new Han Solo, albeit, you know, it's not 100% new. We'll have to wait and see on that. I like the speeder bike. That's new. Obviously, I'll be reviewing that very soon. The Scout Trooper that comes with it, okay, I would have preferred it if it was an all-new Scout Trooper, but the updates that they've done to it do seem to have improved it a lot, particularly with the size of the helmet. The ATST is one that I'm just like whatever about, because at the end of the day, I think when you're sort of creating these themes, and as you say, the Endor theme is you know, an easy one for them to do, you do kind of need to give things to like new collectors as well, and I think we do forget that quite easily. When things get released, we're like, you know, why are you doing that? It's just a repack, or it's just a repaint, or I've already got one of those from 10 years ago or whatever. Well, new collectors, or, you know, new people to the franchise, kids, may not have those, and, you know, they've got to put them out again to sort of fill out those scenes. So I'm all for them doing that. At the end of the day, you don't have to buy everything that they put out, and sometimes when they release things, it's not for you or me, it's for some, you know, a completely different target audience. We've obviously got the repacks of the Goons, which I know a lot of people wanted. You know, not Yak Face, but the other ones are a good repack. Weequay's coming, so, you know, we are going to get some other stuff that is new, so, you know, let's wait and see what they do. As you said in your question, as I just said there, you know, we only know sort of maybe half of it, so. And when you look at the Black Series as well, a lot of their stuff is repacks on vintage style cards as well. They're not really getting anything new either. This is stuff to sort of celebrate the anniversary, and, you know, a lot of it is going to be stuff that we've had before. It's just natural. TVC Mackin says, hi BB, question for next week. For the A New Hope Luke and Leia, would you prefer soft goods for the tunic and dress, or moulded and plastic parts? I personally think the Black Series Luke looks like he's wearing a robe and would prefer plastic. I think I'm going that way. I think I'm erring on that side, you know, plastic. I think soft goods should be reserved for like capes and cloaks and things like that, maybe not their actual uniform. So a bit like this guy here. Aaron Bailey says, hey Bossk, always look forward to watching this on Sunday before another long week. Question for next week, do you use dioramas for displaying your loose figures? If so, are they custom or pieces from Hasbro? Thanks again. Okay then, so sorry about the light and the audio quality on this bit, but basically to answer your question, I tend to just put my figures at the moment in my display cabinet on shelves, just sort of in, you know, you've got clones, you've got Mandalorian type characters, then you've got sort of Empire Strikes Back shelf, and until I get my new collection room, that's kind of where they've got to stay. But after that, I want to sort of do like mini dioramas down there. That you can see that I do have a custom from Ian Butler IB3D, which is the Mandalorian forge. That's pretty cool. And my buddy Daniel Chart actually gifted me this awesome trash compactor, which he, you know, made himself, which is awesome. If you haven't checked out his channel, he does all these kinds of things, and I absolutely love that. You can see Chewie like banging on the door there. You've got Han and Luke. Obviously we need a Princess Leia for this scene, but yeah, these are the only sort of two things that I have. And then you can see here I set other things up with vehicles. You've got the tank there from Rogue One, you've got the troop transport there, and then these are my vintage figures. So they're all in like Detolf cabinets basically, and then on the top I have things going on like this, and the barge obviously. But yeah, until I get a bigger collection room, as I said, figures are in cabinets basically. Adam Schnepp says, just discovered your channel and wanted to say thanks for creating great content. Thank you, Adam, and welcome to the channel, my friend. Sorry if this has been asked before, but what do you think the odds are of getting a TVC versions of the Obi-Wan on Jabeam and Vader with his damaged helmet and chest box? Saw the photos of the Hot Toys version of those characters and would love to see both in the line. Yeah, I think obviously we've had the new Vader, so it's a possibility that potentially they could, you know, do a battle damage version of him. I think that's likely, in fact, that they could do that. They're not going to waste this sculpt. It's all new. In terms of the Jabeam Obi-Wan, I guess it's depends on what parts they've got already. I can't really see them doing a whole new sculpt for him in particular, but you know, I think Jedis in general, we kind of need an all-new Jedi sculpt. That's just my opinion. I think, you know, re-releasing the Mace Windu like they did, I think those figures need updating. But as I say, that's just my personal opinion. Alright then guys, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to watch the video after this one about the reveals for the back of the Scout Trooper card back with the Phase 2 clone and Admiral Piet. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below of that video. Leave your questions for next week's episode in this video. I thank you all for watching. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members. And for anybody that doesn't catch any of my future videos after this one, I wish you a very Merry Christmas. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we shall see you on the next one.